All right. Well, I've got 15 minutes in me, so I'll give you that. So. Kate, what are you doing here? All right. Start with an opening statement, and then happy to take any questions per usual. Bye week was good. We're hopeful to get some guys back for this week. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Obviously, anytime you're playing an Air Force team that has hit their stride in the last couple of weeks, that's kind of interesting. It was, they're playing with a lot of different guys, especially quarterback. And I think now that they've kind of settled on Hayes, you can see the consistency and the continuity of the offense starting to come together. But anytime you're playing a triple option team, the fullback really is what makes it go. And so the Carson kid is kind of what the offense goes through. And then the Harris kid, 21. He's an interesting athlete. Kind of reminds me of Marcus Bell a little bit. Kind of has a lot of playmaking ability and really tough kid. And I just have a ton of respect for the academies in general, but also for the job that the coach has done there for over 17 years. And really haven't had an opportunity to play against academies very often. Played against Air Force one time when we were at Boise, and then in my Big Sky days played Cal Poly when they were a triple option outfit. So not a ton of experience with this, but the good news is we have Coach Sadat on staff who spent a long time at the academies and Cal Poly and is very familiar with this style. So I think the one thing that's lost is how well their defense is playing right now. Obviously got a shutout against Oregon State. I really think they've got good length up front. Number 8 is a tough linebacker, man. I like the way that kid plays a lot. And so it'll be a good test. And we're excited to have him here at Mackey and excited to honor and represent our seniors and send them out with a good memory here at Mackey and then prepare for the last game. So happy to take any questions.
With this being senior day, I guess how will you remember this senior class, your first one at Nevada?
I kind of think a lot of them are, it's an interesting dynamic now, right? Where you got guys that have been here a long time and given a lot to this university and this program. And then there's guys that have been here for 9 months, or even less in some cases. And so I just think, like, what I tell them is you guys are the bridge builders, man. You guys are from where we're at to where we're going. Somebody had to start building that bridge. And I think that this senior group is the group that it started building that bridge. And, there's some guys that I have history with prior to my time here at Nevada that I have a lot of affection for. But I will say this, any young man that does this and sees it through, because physically it's so demanding, emotionally it's so demanding. There's no other sport that compares to it in terms of what we ask these kids to do. Any young man that gets to the finish line and walks on senior day deserves our respect and admiration. And if you find a kid like that, go hire him, because they're going to be able to deal with adversity. They're going to be able to operate in a diverse environment. They're self-motivated. They can get themselves up at 5:15 in the morning and go work out and train for 300 days a year for 12 guaranteed opportunities to compete. And I think that's very unique in sports. And so, like I said, I kind of think about this group as like a bridge building group for us, but I also have a lot of admiration and affection for any young man that sees this through the way these kids have.
Given the unique offense they run, I guess how beneficial is the bye week to try and get prepared for a triple option?
I think it always helps. It always helps to have a little bit extra time, and certainly we've tried to maximize that. But there's no way that you can simulate the speed and detail with which they execute, and that's the hard part. Usually that's why they're so good on opening drives. It's like almost like a boxing match, and I don't mean a Jake Paul, Mike Tyson boxing match. I mean like an actual boxing match here, and you can't simulate it. And so once they get going, you kind of now I got that wasn't the backside tackle and the scout team cutting me off. That was a real live player cutting me off, and now I kind of got to get a feel for it. And I think each of the last 2 weeks they've had ridiculously long and effective opening drives. And that's one of the things that's hard when you're playing an option team is they're going to limit your possessions. So it's not just what you do on defense. It's also how you respond on offense, and you've got to maximize your possessions on that side of the ball as well.
When you look at Jaden Smith and what he's given you, one of your seniors, I guess, is this what you expected out of him? What have just been your thoughts on the season and the journey that he's had both with you and away from you?
I mean, I love that kid. I love that family, man. I really do. I can remember sitting in the living room when we were recruiting him, and God's the assistant wide receiver coach for the New Orleans Saints right now, Denarius McGee. He was kind of the area recruiter, and then I just got to know him and his family, and they're just such amazing people. And he followed us to Bozeman, Montana, and then after I left, he kind of made a course correction in his career, went a little bit closer to home and played at Tarleton, and had a really good first year at Tarleton. And then he got injured his second year there, and his numbers weren't quite the same. And I think to be kind of one of our primary targets in this offense, and he's an elite red zone threat. I don't know that I've ever been around a guy, and I've coached some places, that has anybody any better than Jaden Smith is in the red zone. And but what he's brought to this program in terms of maturity and leadership, and you see how he watch him catch a touchdown pass. Like, that's what I want our guys to look like when they catch a touchdown pass. Thanks to the man upstairs and hands the ball to the official, and just goes about his business. And he's a class act.
You saying you don't have a ton of experience against the triple option and defending it, but some on your staff have. I guess, what do you think are kind of the key elements to trying to be effective in slowing down that kind of rushing attack?
Well, you're up front. You better be gritty and tough, because it's going to be a real live warfare in there going after it. And so, obviously, detail and discipline, doing your job down after down, snap after snap, quarter after quarter. I think that schematically, there's a lot of different ways that you can approach it. But they know them all. It's like they have their Bible upstairs, and they're like, oh, they're playing double G. Here's how we're going to attack it. Oh, they're playing odd. Here's how we're going to attack it. And so they have the answers to the test. It's just keeping them maybe guessing a little bit, off balance. And you'll see in the past, and even now, option teams, they get up, they do a lot of look to the side, right? And now they've got the coach to player too, so they can, hey, this is what we're going to. Here's your primary read. They can kind of give them real-time instruction in terms of what to look for. But it's the challenge is really, can you keep them off schedule? A 3-yard gain on first down, a 3-yard gain on second down, a 3-yard gain on third down, and a 1-yard gain on fourth down. That's what they're looking for. And so can you get them to 2nd and 9, 2nd and 11 by creating a negative play? I think that changes the mindset of the play caller on offense, and that's really, in my mind, scheme aside, it's about can you get them off schedule, because they're gonna grind it out and do what they do, but to win the series, you've got to be able to get them into a play calling situation that they're not as comfortable in.
Coach, final home game at Mackey Stadium this season. What do you remember most about this home slate this season?
Man, I don't know. There's been a lot of. I probably need to take some time off and reflect on a lot of things at the end of the season. But I do remember, I remember the opening game against SMU, and that was there were some really cool things that happened in that game for us to be able to compete with one of the top teams in the country, and then some painful things, man. Just probably the high right now is obviously the Oregon State win, and that's it leaves you wanting more, man. Leaves you wanting more, and that's what we're here to do, is try to build this thing into something where we can consistently perform at a high level, and give those young men that payday that they work so hard for week in and week out.
You mentioned getting healthier during the bye week. To what extent did you guys get healthier?
I think we'll get Naki back, and that's a big deal. Although I think both Stone and Austin have done a really nice job filling in for Drew and Naki. I think Caden Johnson is battling back. I mean, I can't say enough about that kid. Another kid talk about that's kind of gone on the journey. I mean, he's fantastic attitude. We were always a better team with Caden playing, and it wasn't always his production. I don't know, he brings kind of a calmness to our group on that side of the ball that I really like. And so having him back, we're hopeful that Marcus Bellin's going to be able to go, and we're also hopeful that we'll get Savion Red back. So it's some of those guys that have been out for a couple of weeks, And there's going to be some long-term. We're not getting Jaden O'Rourke back. We're not getting Drew back. We're not getting Matthew Killam back. I mean, there's some guys, Jace Henry, that are done, physically for the year. And that's unfortunate. But, we do get a couple of pieces back, and that's going to help us.
Is Jay someone who you guys could maybe redshirt since he only played 4 games? Have you guys had that conversation?
We have. Well, there's going to be a lot of conversations that take place in a couple weeks here, as is the nature of modern college football. But we have had that conversation with him, and I think that's, he might be one of those guys that might be able to go, but what are you going to get out of a guy that's been out for 8 weeks, at this point? And so, yeah, hey, because he did only play 4 games, there's the potential for that to be part of the equation with him.
With Naki coming back, I mean, what difference did you see with him on the field versus him not on the field with your defense?
Man, he's a warrior. Like, he's a very physical player. Not as vocal as maybe some of the other guys that you see on the defensive side of the ball, but very accountable, very physical, has a lot of position versatility. He can do different things. I mean, if you remember, he was playing on the edge for us a decent amount against some teams when Caden was out. And so I think the versatility, the experience, and the physicality are the things that he brings to the table.
Another one of your seniors, Keaton, was only here for 1 year, but what did you think of him getting a chance to play full-time safety?
Yeah, I mean, I think he proved that he's capable. That's the thing, and I think that's what he was looking for, was an opportunity to be an every down player. And I think some of the knocks on him that may have been present, I think he's dispelled those. I mean, I don't know how many guys are going to tackle number 2 from Boise State in the open field the way he did. I know we didn't have anybody else who was going to do it. So, obviously that's a really good player. Ashton Jeanty is justifiably in the Heisman discussion and will probably be one of the first backs chosen in the NFL draft. I don't know if anybody tackled him the way number 4 did for us. And so I think that, that's the type of player that he can be. And his leadership and his buy-in was really, really spectacular. And super proud of him, and glad he went on this journey with us.
When you look at Air Force, I mean, the first 8 games have been very different than the last 2 games. They're obviously playing a lot better. What's been the biggest difference outside of just the quarterback?
Yeah, I think defensively they've kind of been the same outfit, right? But offensively they've struggled at times, and I think part of it is they haven't really been able to create a lot of explosives in the pass game, right? The run game's going to have their share because that's what they do. But if you look statistically, number 3 that was starting the season that played the first 6 games, you look at like their pass efficiency numbers and yards per game, and then look at the ones what's number 7 now. It's dramatically different. I think 3 was like 39% passing, and this guy's in the 60s. And so I think that is the element that is different. And they're never going to be an air raid, but that's a huge part of their ability to win games, right? Is to, lull you to sleep with the triple and then bang one over the top to a wide open receiver, and that's been more prevalent in the last couple of games.
I know you can't talk individually about recruits, but it seems like you guys have done a pretty good job getting some local commitments. I guess, what has been the reaction from the local high school coaches as you've gotten here your first year and expressed how much you want them to be part of the program?
I think it's been really good. And, I mean, here's the thing. Recruiting is not about anything other than persistence, because it's still a relationship-based deal. And knowing that there's always going to be factors that are involved. Johnny grows up wanting to be a USC Trojan or whatever the case may be. But developing relationships and being present, showing up and saying hello and please and thank you, like that stuff still matters. And you can outwork people in recruiting. And I definitely think that we can never, ever be outworked in recruiting in Northern Nevada. This is, there's kids here that have the desire or the ability to play here. They need to come here. And they need to come here because we've developed relationships and we've shown them sincere interest and we've followed up and followed through with them. And I think we're actually doing, I could get into a whole nother conversation about recruiting, about how dramatically it's changed. One small thing that people don't recognize now, they moved the mid-year signing day up 2 weeks to the first week in December. So in the past, hey, we get done with the season, you go out on the road, whether you're prepping for a bowl game or not, you come in on the weekends, you have official visits, you're doing home visits, that stuff's out. It's dead. So you've got to go and get these kids right now. They've got to decide what they're going to do, because if they don't sign on December 4th, there's a high probability that 99% of the universities are going to go to the portal when it opens on December 9th, and they're going to forget about the high school kid, and they're going to move forward with filling their roster with the needs they have through the portal. And so I think that's something that's changed dramatically from a high school coaching or a high school recruiting perspective. And so getting out and educating the high school coaches, having these conversations so they understand, being transparent about it, I think that goes a long ways. I think they really appreciate, because they're not tracking on that. I mean, Galena's trying to win a state championship. Minogue's trying to win a state championship. They're not focused on that aspect of it, but it's a big part of their job as high school coaches is to be able to mentor and coach and counsel these kids. And so I think that's been really good. I think in recruiting there's 2 things. There's the record of the program and there's the trajectory or the momentum of the program. And those are 2 different things. You can have a really good record And the trajectory of the program may not be exactly what you want it to be. Let's say you're at University X that's expected to compete for a national championship and you're a 3-loss team. Well, what's the momentum and trajectory of the program? The perception is different. You can be a 3 or 4 win team who has been very competitive and has good momentum, and that can still be attractive to recruits because they can see, hey, I want to be a part of the ascension. And I think that's resonating with kids, not just here in Northern Nevada, but the kids that we're recruiting around the country.
How has the high school class kind of changed in terms of the importance to a recruiting class with the transfer portal becoming so much more prevalent?
Yeah, as I mentioned a couple of times, Chris, I've learned a lot, right, being here. And what I've really tried to pay attention to is what works here. Like, who are the kids that are most successful? They're comfortable in the program, the environment, they like Reno. Academically, it's a good fit for them. Like, all of those things that make a kid be able to be their best version, right? And I think that a lot of the times the fit and the development of a kid is based on more on how comfortable they are. Like, at the end of the day, I heard a guy say this one time. They were talking about the NFL. Like, talent plus environment equals production. Okay, is Tom Brady if he doesn't go to the Patriots? We'll never know. He went to the Patriots. But there's a gazillion guys that get drafted really high and go into maybe an organization that's not as organized or structured, and they fail. Well, was it because they lack talent, or was the environment not supportive of them? So what I'm trying to do is find the talent piece, right, and make sure that they're going to fit into this environment so they can excel. And I think there's a lot of high school kids, Northern California kids, Northern Nevada kids that really fit that mold. And so I'm trying to make sure that we build this thing with a foundation of high school players, right? We had to do what we had to do to be competitive year one. And moving forward, I would prefer not to be a 40% portal guy. You know, I would prefer to be a 50 to 60% high school guy, and then we're supplementing our roster needs with veteran players who have experience via the portal or via junior college recruiting. And so I think I know that was a long answer to a short question, but I think that gives you an idea kind of where we want to move.
So, do you have a percentage that you'd like on an annual basis?
But here's the thing that's crazy. I don't know. I know that we can go to 105, so I have 120 guys on the roster right now. I got to get down to 105. Okay, they haven't told us when we have to be down to 105. We know that we're going to be, for us anyway, we're going to be at 85 scholarships, and the SEC came out with that, so I suspect most people are going to do that because of Title IX more than anything else, right? Not because they don't have the money at places like Texas to afford 105. So you got 85, you got 105. It's going from a head count sport, meaning 85 humans, 85 scholarships, to an equivalency sport, meaning that you can divide those up. Well, what does that look like? NIL, is that becoming profit sharing? So you've got how many guys are going to leave the team? So, I mean, it's like this, you know. My Western Montana college education is being stressed right now on all the factors and variables that are coming in. Although, you know, I mean, I tip my hat to the Bulldogs, 2-time Frontier Conference champs back to back. So,
there you go. Actually, did get a question from a North Dakota State beat writer, and they asked me to ask you what you would think of them potentially joining the Mountain West.
Of North Dakota State?
Yes.
I think that they're a better fit than a lot of other places that we're talking to. But I don't know why they would. It's going to cost them probably $14 million because it went, about 4 years ago, the buy-in to Division I went from $1 million to $11 million. Okay, so it's going to cost them a bunch of money. And they have plenty of money, don't get me wrong. Okay, but year in and year out, they can compete for a national championship. They can. Right? That's where they're at. Now, if they feel like the juice is worth the squeeze and they can get into a position, which they might be able to do, I think there's 4 teams that could do it. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and Montana. I think all of those teams could potentially make the leap because of their fan base. But they're going to have to go from a $20-something million athletic budget up into the 40s. And so is there an appetite to do that in those states? I don't know the answer to that. Do I think they would compete really well? Absolutely. Yeah, I do.
Obviously, there was a headline off the field last week about a player getting arrested. I guess what's your message to the team not to bring that into what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's disappointing, and we're following athletic department protocol, but it's clearly something that we talk about internally, and it's frustrating, man. It's frustrating, and I like to pride myself on trying to do a lot of character education within our program, and I think that our guys were probably more disappointed than anything. All right. Thank you, guys.